Hi, this is Kelly Phillips from paperbeadrollers.com. Now today's project is a big one, but it is so worth it. We're making a fall door wreath with paper beads. Honestly, the only thing that makes it for fall are the colors I chose. You can use this method to make a door wreath for any season. Let's get started. The tools and supplies you need for this project are the pink 3/8" paper bead roller from paperbeadrollers.com, a pair of jewelry pliers, a pair of snips, and scissors. You'll also need strips of long paper. I used brown and gold poster board for mine. Now these strips are 1/2 inch at the top and 28 inches long. The weight of these papers appears to be between 65 and 80 pounds. Now the boards weren't labeled, so I'm not positive on the weight. It is just standard poster board that I got at the store. I colored the edges of my strips with ink to give the wreath variation, kind of like the variation in color that you'll see in the fall. I used a white, a gold, and a dark brown. You'll also need a hot glue gun, white school glue, and some toothpicks. I'm going to fill in the center of my beads with these 8mm rose gold ball beads. Now, I thought about using the regular gold color, but decided to go with the rose gold to add another variation to my wreath. I'm going to use this 8-inch foam wreath base to hold the paper beads in place. If you've watched other tutorials of mine, you know that I'm a huge fan of brushing on diamond glaze to seal my beads. However, this wreath is going to be outside and needs to be able to take exposure to the weather. I also don't want the wreath to be super shiny. I want it to have more of a fall natural look. For that, I decided to use PC Petrifier. It does a great job of hardening the beads, and while it adds a tiny bit of shine, it's not the high gloss look you get with diamond glaze. You should always use rubber gloves and use this product in a well-ventilated area. Your first step is to cut your strips. Now I used a yardstick to draw my cut lines, then I just cut them out with scissors. Notice that the brown paper is colored all the way through, while the gold paper is white on the edge because it has a white core inside. Now I'm going to use my ink pads to color the edges. If both the papers were white on the edge, I would have fewer variations of color when I'm done. But because the brown paper has brown edges, it'll give it a different look when I apply the ink. So this should give me 8 variations of color in my wreath. I like to apply my ink to the edge before I roll. It gives me more control of how the color goes on. If you try to press a rolled bead into the ink pad, you get too much in some places and not enough ink in others. If I try to color the bead with markers after the fact, the color tends to be flatter and less dimensional. Now you only have to do one side of the strip because the other side is going to be against the wreath base and we won't see it. See how the white looks different on the middle bead? That's the brown edges showing through. It'll give a good dimension to our finished wreath. Once I have all of the edges colored, it's time to roll the beads. Now I'm using the pink bead roller from paperbeadrollers.com. It's 3/8 inch. I've decided I'm going to use 3 sizes of beads. I'll use 1 strip on some beads, 2 strips on others, and then 4 strips to make the largest beads. Stack your paper strips, making sure the inked side is facing up. Tightly roll the strips as usual. Now I want my final shape to be a cone shape, so I'm pulling my strip slightly to the side. This is something that you can also adjust after the bead is rolled. Here are the different size beads, each with a different ink applied to the edge. For dipping, I used a tin roasting pan that I got at the dollar store. I cut notches into the edges to hold the fishing line that I strung the beads on. I've put my PC into a glass dish with a lid. The wide mouth makes it easy to dip these larger beads. I've decided to hang these horizontally rather than vertically because the large cone shapes have a lot of contact space. When they rest against each other, they get really stuck. Now I did the dipping and drying process twice with each bead and they were ready to go. Okay, we're ready to decorate our beads and put the picks in the backs. Plug in your hot glue gun and get it nice and warm. I'm going to cut each toothpick in half and glue it to the back of the bead to form our pick, which is what will hold the bead onto the styrofoam. Each bead is also getting a rose gold ball spacer right in the center. The bead is a tad smaller than the center hole, so we're going to hold it in place with the hot glue. You can purchase these spacers in 4 colors at paperbeadrollers.com. Drop the metal bead through the back of the paper bead, using your finger to block the hole so it stays in place. Fill in the hole with your hot glue. Take a half toothpick and put the cut side down into the glue. I like to press it up against the side of the bead so it adheres better. When that cools, you'll be ready to start forming your wreath. Now, I don't want the green foam showing through the paper beads on my wreath, so I'm going to spray paint it with this Rust-Oleum paint. Make sure you get all of the spots and do both sides.
Looks a little bit like a donut. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I will let this dry and then I will come out and do the other side.
Now we can start putting our beads on the wreath form. By nature, this wreath is not going to be exactly symmetrical, but I don't want it to be lopsided either. So to help with that, I'll begin with my largest beads and I'll set them into the foam spaced out and rather symmetrical. I'm going to vary the colors, the angles, and exactly where they're spaced on the wreath. Once this is finished, I'll fill in the gaps with the smaller beads. As I work my way around the wreath, I'm trying to leave the smallest gaps possible. I'm also trying to vary the colors as much as possible. You may find that you can't completely separate colors. You might end up with 2 similar beads next to each other in a few spots. That's okay, but just try to spread them out as much as you can. Now, I am not covering the back of this wreath in beads. I'm only going around the edge as far as it takes to look like a full wreath. Part of that is the weight. I mean, these paper beads weigh a ton, and if you cover both sides, you might have trouble keeping this up on your door. Also, I'm going to use a wreath hanger, and that's going to work better if it can be right up against the foam. So see here, I'm going to have too much of a gap, so I'm going to move this large bead over a bit. That's why I'm not gluing the beads directly into the foam. I'm trying not to move them too much because I don't want to destroy the foam, but occasionally it is necessary. Now this bead has a weird angle on it, so let me move it. Oh geez, it just broke. That's okay, I can glue another toothpick in place. So I'll continue working my way around the edge here, adjusting the beads as needed for full coverage. I'm down to my last few beads and it's time to step back and take a look at the balance of the wreath. I need to make sure that the inside and outside space is filled in completely so there aren't any holes or gaps that draw the eye. One right here will look good, and we'll just go around and fill in the edges. And there you have it, a beautiful and quirky wreath reflecting deep shades of brown and gold for fall. For more tutorials like this, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also join us over on Facebook in the Paper Bead Fanatics group to share your own project. Happy rolling!